Welcome back to another exciting YouTube video. And what we're talking about today is the absolute fail of Rolling Stone's top 500 albums. So actually, this is not the video that I plan on putting up next. I was actually putting up a video on, I'm going to do a section on great albums. And the one I was actually going to put up was on Van Halen 5150. But I was with me bandmates yesterday, and we got to talking about this, and it just stayed on my mind all day yesterday. Been on my mind all day today, and finally I just thought, you know what, I got to say something about this because this is just absolutely pathetic. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's pretty funny to say the least. To be honest with you, it's quite comical. Let me roll up here. So what they've done is I guess what they consider to be the top 500 albums, obviously. How they chose, what their criteria was, I really don't know. I read the article, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. As you may or may not know, Rolling Stone is to music now what MTV is to music video. Doesn't exist. This has become more of a political rag than anything, and you know they're using their magazine to base their viewpoints on everything that's going on in the world, and you know it's I just don't agree, and you know it's probably why I'm assuming their readership's down. I mean I honestly don't know, but I don't know anybody who reads Rolling Stone magazine anymore. But years ago when I was a kid, a lot of people read Rolling Stone magazines. It was actually the place to go to for music. But I don't think it's that anymore. I think it's I think they've really trailed off what they were supposed to be doing, kind of like MTV has, and kind of fallen by the wayside for the most part. But on with that, let's go ahead and get started and start talking about this. If you hear some noise in the background, that would be my Great Dane over there chewing on a bone, and I tried to get him to curtail that for a moment, but that was not happening. He's pretty satisfied with his bone situation right now. So to go ahead and get started, and like I said, I just wanted to comment on this and go through a few things because I disagree with pretty much most of what they've got here. I don't really understand, like I said, what their criteria was, and I think for the most part a lot of these albums don't belong in the top 500, and the top 20, half of those don't even belong there. Maybe in the top 500, but definitely not in the top 20. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and just roll down the list a little bit. The first one I came across that kind of piqued me was the Go-Go's, Beauty and the Beat. They've got it sitting at number 400 right now. And I kind of disagree with that. I think that needs to be a little lower. Like them or hate them, Go-Go's, if you even know who they are, because I say a lot of the young people don't, but they were an all-female pop rock band that formed back in the early 80s, and it was pretty cool just having the entire female band. So to me that was important, and like I said, regardless of what their criteria was on the section I'm doing on great albums, I'm not doing criteria on any kind of political statement or anything, which I'm sure a lot of this is in the Rolling Stone. I'm strictly basing my criteria on the importance of the album. Did the album accomplish something? Could you get away from it? And what I mean by that is, when Rush released Moving Pictures, I was in high school, and you couldn't go anywhere without hearing Rush Moving Pictures. It was on everybody's car radio. It was on everybody's, of course, back then we didn't have iPods, but it was on everybody's headsets. You turn on the radio, that's all you heard. I mean, it was just everywhere. You could not escape it. And that's kind of what I'm basing when I'm doing my segment on great albums. That's what I'm basing it on. And like I said, just a significance of that album. If the album actually did something. And there again, I don't mean a political statement, but something majorly changed. Like on the one 51 to 50, that was a big album for a lot of reasons. And so that's why it's in my list of albums to do. But back onto this, the Go-Go's, Beauty and the Beat. I think that was a more relevant album than 400. I'm not saying that should have been in the top 100, but it definitely should have been better than 400. I think that's a little high on the chart for that. Moving down, this one I completely disagree with. At 379, they got Rush Moving Pictures. Are you kidding me? Moving Pictures is an iconic album. This is an amazing album. I remember when Tom Sawyer first came out, and like I said, you could not escape it. It was everywhere. So that shows, A, not only the popularity of the album, but B, its place in time. Rush Moving Pictures was the right album at the right time. And that makes it very, very significant. And so putting that at 379, that is an embarrassment to Rush. And I hope that, because I'm going to tell you, Rush has the most loyal fans in the world, period. And I hope every Rush fan who reads this is pissed off that they, A, only have one album in there, and B, they're at 379. Coming in at 378 was Run DMC, Run DMC. Again, I disagree with that. These guys were, it's Run DMC. These guys were pioneers in what they were doing. This should have easily been a top 100 album. To put it, and I'm not a rap guy. I'll be the first to admit it. I don't like rap. It just does not make sense to me. But to put that at 378, that's ridiculous, because this was an important album, and it's just, I don't understand their criteria. Like I said, it just doesn't make any sense. Moving down the list, we get to 355, Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath. One of the greatest metal bands, if not, I'm not going to say the greatest metal band, but they're the ones who heralded metal music. They're one of the founders of this. And for them to come in at 355, because again, this is important music. And this music, it did something. So to bring them in at 355 is an absolute embarrassment. And what even gets me more is at 354, we got X-Ray Specs, Germ-Free Adolescence. Enough said. Coming in at 305, this is another big shocker for me, Kiss Alive. That should have been in the top 100. The significance of Kiss Alive. This is without a doubt one of the greatest live albums ever made. And before Kiss Alive, there really wasn't a whole lot of live albums, or not to the standard that live albums are set to now. Kiss Alive kind of set that whole thing on fire. And, of course, they followed that up with Kiss Alive 2, which was just as fantastic. Love Kiss or hate Kiss, you cannot deny the longevity of Kiss. The amount of albums, the amount of hits, the amount of tours, the amount of makeup. 305, I think that's ridiculous. That should have been in the top 100 just because of the significance of the album. Because like I said, if you like it or if you don't like it, Kiss Alive was an important album at the time. Coming in at 300, we have Shania Twain, Come On Over. That is absolutely ridiculous. This is definitely a top 100 album. Shania Twain, besides the fact she's still smoking hot today, this is the most selling album by a female artist ever. So that's some pretty damn strong criteria. And also, she's one of the ones, and I'm not a big country music guy, but she's one of the ones that kind of really got into that crossover. A lot of her country songs made it onto pop radio, which kind of heralded in the whole bro country thing that's going on right now, this whole crossover pop country thing that's happening. Shania Twain's one of the ones that really got that kicked off and going. And besides the fact that album spun how many freaking singles? To put her at 300 is absolutely asinine. Easily a top 100 album. Huge mistake. At 299, they put B.B. King, Live at the Regal. I don't know if I'd have put that one in top 100 or not, to be honest with you, but I definitely would have put that one a lot better at 299. It's B.B. King. This is one of my big complaints right here. Van Halen appears one time in the top 500 with Van Halen. They show up at 292. That's ridiculous. I don't think that this was their best album, but I do understand the significance of this album because it was very groundbreaking with Eddie Van Halen. 4 dudes that were just tearing up the rock scene, and of course Eddie's guitar playing, the guy's a virtuoso on the guitar, and he changed the way we all play guitar. Admit it or not, he changed the way everybody played guitar. So at 292 to put Van Halen, that's ridiculous. That is easily, in my opinion, a top 50 album. Easily. Moving down the list, we have Destiny's Child that drops in at 291. The Writings on the Wall. They were a big group. And I know they were a big group. They sold a lot of albums, and they put out a lot of singles. I got to be honest, I don't think it's a top 500 album, though. I just do not. Kicking down the list, Beatles, they show up at 266 with Help. That is easily a top 100 album. It's the Beatles. Don't really need to say a whole lot more than that. And besides, Help was a great album. It was a fantastic album. I had Yesterday on it, for crying out loud, which is one of the greatest songs ever. I mean, it's just an amazing song. And what I find even more funny, coming in at 265, is The Pavement with Wowie Zowie. Moving on. The Beatles, they bounce in here again at number 263 with Hard Day's Night. I guess I can't complain too much about that. I honestly don't know where I would have put Hard Day's Night in the top 500. I don't think I would have put it lower than 263. But like I said, again, it's the Beatles. It's the Beatles. This one kind of shocks me a little bit. This one beat Van Halen. At 261, we have the Beastie Boys. Check Your Head. The Beastie Boys beat Van Halen. And even and even better, at 260, we have a band called The Slits with the album called Cut. So tell you what, I don't know anything about The Slits. I've never heard The Slits. They're at 260, so apparently they think at Rolling Stone this album was of some kind of epic proportion. I absolutely disagree. So in the comments section, somebody please tell me songs that they've heard by The Slits off the album Cut. Just one. Dropping in at 249, Whitney Houston. I absolutely disagree with this. I completely disagree with this. Whitney Houston, this was a very important album for her. This album is easily top 100, if not top 50. This album spun how many singles come off this thing. And the hits that came off this, they weren't hits. They were huge hits. They were massive hits that came off of this. To put this at 249 is absolutely embarrassing. Again, their criteria absolutely failed. Love Whitney Houston or hate Whitney Houston, absolutely one of the greatest voices of our time, and you cannot argue that point. To drop her debut at 249, that is absolutely sad. Green Day, they put American Idiot at 248. I like Green Day, gotta be honest, wouldn't be my top 500. I don't get that one. Metallica, they make their debut at 235 with the Black Album. Are you kidding me? I'm already exhausted. The Black Album was a huge, huge album, and it's where Metallica really found commercial success. Now, a lot of the Metallica diehards, of course, that was their sellout, but I disagree. It wasn't their sellout. Why do something in your craft if you can't do it and take it all the way? And that's what Metallica did. On the Black Album, it all came together. The sound, the tone, the timing, the composition. And don't get me wrong, the writing on the earlier stuff, Wanted Stuff, fantastic. Those are songs they could never replicate. They'll never have those songs again. But the Black Album was huge, absolutely huge. And Metallica, I have to call them the greatest metal band in the world simply because of their longevity and the amount of work that they've done. They've been carrying that torch forever, and they're still steaming ahead. So even if you don't like their music that much, personally, I'm an Iron Maiden guy. Metallica playing a show, Iron Maiden playing a show the same day, I'm going to see Iron Maiden. But you got to give Metallica credit where credit is due. And to bring them in at 235 on the Black Album, that is an absolute disgrace. Completely disagree with that. Mr. Billy Joel drops in at 169 with The Stranger. Big fell. That's easily a top 50 album. Love or hate Billy Joel. I personally love Billy Joel. I play piano. Billy Joel is one of my favorites. He is actually my favorite singer-songwriter, and he is one of the most prolific singer-songwriters ever. This guy has had more freaking hits and just a massive body of work. And what's made Billy Joel so good for so long is he knows how to change with the times. His first album was a folk album, for crying out loud, with Cold Spring Harbor. And then Of course, then we got through the Piano Man, and then he started to find his rock roots, 52nd Street and Glass Houses, and then moving on. And then he gave us, of course, The Stranger, which is just an unbelievably good album. If you've never heard The Stranger, you got to listen to The Stranger. But then he dropped Nylon Curtain on us, and then he had a complete turnaround, and he hit us with Innocent Man, which took us back to the 50s doo-wop, which was just a brilliant album, absolutely brilliant album. But then, he moves on, and he comes up with The River of Dreams, which has a very deep gospel overtone to it, which I absolutely love. And then what does he do after that? He spawns a couple more albums, but then the guy writes a classical piano album. I mean, give me a break. That's why Billy Joel is so good, and that's why he's been in the business for so long, because the guy can virtually do just about freaking anything. So moving on from Billy Joel, that's easily a top 50 album, 169. I absolutely cannot believe that. That shocks me. The Police, Synchronicity, drops in at 159. That's easily a top 100 album also. This was a very, very fantastic album, and it spun major hits for the Police. This is one of the albums I was talking about you cannot get away from. You turn on the radio. If you weren't hearing King of Pain, you were hearing Every Breath You Take. You were hearing Synchronicity too. It was on and on and on. This album is fantastic. This is easily a top 50 album. Definitely a top 100, top 50. But let's see, what came out in 158? Erykah Badu, Mama's Gun. Again, moving on. 135 drops in with the Joshua Tree, U2. Are you kidding me? Personally, I do not like U2. They're talented. I appreciate them for what they are. Their music's just not my bag. But the Joshua Tree was a fantastic album, and it was huge. It was beyond huge. And for them to drop that at 135, that is easily a top 50 album. And here's kind of something that's just kind of ironic. I'm not a big U2 fan, but my top 5 favorite songs, and my top 5 is one by U2. Figure that one out. That is just an absolutely brilliantly written song. But coming in at 134, that snuffed down at U2, the Joshua Tree, is the Fugees, The Score. I understand Fugees were popular. I understand people like the Fugees. I get that. I am not knocking them. They did some pretty cool stuff, even though it's not my genre. Was the Fugees, The Score, better than the Joshua Tree? Absolutely not. Can't even put them in the same ballpark. And there again, the Fugees, The Score, top 500, maybe. Top 200, absolutely not. Okay, for a couple of the biggest disgraces popping in at 129, we have Pink Floyd, The Wall. The Wall is one of the most epic albums ever written. This is top 20. Absolutely top 20. This is not 129. Especially when you hear what's in the top 20, which I'm going to get to here in a minute. For them to put Pink Floyd, The Wall, because I got to be honest with you, half of Pink Floyd's albums should probably be in the top 20. These guys are just, there's nothing like them anywhere. Nobody has ever been able to replicate what Pink Floyd did. You look at hair metal. They're everywhere. You look at, hard metal, it's everywhere. Death metal, this, that, the other. There's only one Pink Floyd. Nobody has been able to replicate what they did. So to put them at 129 with The Wall, are you kidding me? That is terrible. Another one, 128, Queen, A Night at the Opera. Dropping in at 128, easily a top 100 album. It's Queen and A Night at the Opera. That's about as it's about as good a songwriting as you can get. I mean, plain and simple. It's as good a songwriting as you can get. Actually, that's easily a top 50 album. At 125, Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique. That's not even a top 500 album. Why that's sitting in here at 125 is absolutely beyond me. Breaking the top 100, Metallica flops in at 97 with Master of Puppets. Master of Puppets is a beast of an album. That's easily a top 50 album. To drop them at 97, I absolutely do not get that. At 96, REM, Automatic for the People. You know what? I'll give them that at 96. I'm good with that. Dropping in at 86, we have The Doors, The Doors. Everybody knows who The Doors are. Everybody. This is definitely a top 50 album. They were a phenomenal band with some phenomenal talent and one seriously drugged up lead singer. But The Doors made a lasting impression. I still hear that music today. Some of these other ones, the Slits, I've never heard one song from them. ever. I still hear the Doors today. The Slits, top 500, kind of doubt that. 62, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. What the frickin' frack are you talking about? Easily a top 50, if not a top 20. Guns N' Roses. These truly are the guys that kind of started to put the nail in hair metal. This album released in the late 80s. And when it first came out, you know, Axl was sporting the do, but then that kind of got sunk into his head. The beauty of this album was it was absolutely raw. It was boisterous. It was in your face. It was cutting. And it was just, for lack of a better term, freaking nasty. And again, this is one of those albums you could not get away from. You still cannot get away from it today. There's not a day goes by that I do not hear Welcome to the Jungle or Sweet Child of Mine. I mean, it's just, you can't get away from it. Easily a top 20 album. At 62, that is an absolute disgrace. Led Zeppelin 4 drops in at 58. Oh my God, one of the greatest rock albums ever, and it drops in at 58. Easily a top 20, probably a top 10 album. That is ridiculous. This is a couple of these actually just really just put a sore spot in my bunghole, and this is one of them. Dark Side of the Moon drops in at 55. Are you kidding me? Number one album. That should have been number one. 2 or 3 at the absolute least. That's the top 3. Not only is this an important album, not only could you not get away from this album, not only did it spend more time in the top 100, if I'm not mistaken, than any other album in the world, if I'm not mistaken, and if it's not the top still, then I guarantee you it's number 2. That is an important album. Everybody knows who it is. You cannot get away from it. I still hear it today. It's a number 1, 2, or 3. In my opinion, that's number 1. 55 is an absolute disgrace. These guys at Rolling Stone, that's a joke. That's an absolute joke. All right, so moving on from there, we're going to just cut down to the chase and start to wrap this up. We're going to kick on to the top 20. Here we go. Coming in at number 20, you got Radiohead, Kid A. I do like Radiohead. That is not a top 20 album of the 500 greatest all-time albums. I disagree with that. Coming in at 19, Kendrick Lamar, To Pimp a Butterfly. Top 20, wow, no. 18, Bob Dylan, Highway 61 Revisited. Bob Dylan, it is Bob Dylan. It's, you know, it kind of goes to, it's the Beatles. You know, you got to give credit where credit is due. Would I put this album at number 18? Probably not. Top 50? Yes. Top 20? I don't think so if I was making the list. And honestly, I mean, apparently I know more about this than the guys at Rolling Stone do because their list sucks. Coming in at 17, Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. No, not top 20. Sorry. I wouldn't have put that in top 50. And I'm not saying that because I don't get into that kind of music, because I don't contribute it to, just because I don't like the music, that does not mean that it's not important music or it didn't do something. Because I have a pretty broad genre. You know, I love classical piano. I love metal. I love contemporary jazz. I'm not a hip hop guy. I do get into some of the old R&B stuff. Rap? No, it's rap. I can't do rap. I can't do rap. I play instruments. I can't do rap. Coming in at 16, The Clash, London Calling. I do not disagree with this. This is actually a very important album, London Calling. This is coming in at 16. I'm going to give them that one. They may have gotten one right. Coming in at 15, Public Enemy. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. Blah. I don't know if I'd put that in 15, top 50. Yes, I do know that this was a huge album. I do know these guys made serious waves in the music world. So, top 50, yes. For me, top 15, no. I could not do that. Number 14, the Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street. Rolling Stones, they have to be in the top 20 simply because they're the Rolling freaking Stones. This is not the album I would have put in there, although, but for some reason, they decided it's the one that they wanted to put in there. Disagree with that. Number 13, Aretha Franklin, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. Sorry, that is not top 20 music. Can't do it. Next. Coming in at number 12, Michael Jackson, Thriller. Easily a top 5. Easily a top 5. This album was enormous and it spun so many hits. And again, this is an album you could not get away from. I still hear music off of it today. Not only was the music great, the videos he released off of it was great, but the thing that gets me on this, in my opinion, this is the, without a doubt, best produced album ever. The production on this album is top freaking notch. And you had Steve Lukather playing the guitar on it, besides when Eddie Van Halen. Actually, I'll just call him Eddie Van Halen from now on. Eddie Van Halen jumped in to play the solo on Beat It, and actually did not charge them anything. He did that for free, but Eddie's got plenty of money, so you think he'd be able to give a damn hard shell guitar case to his Wolfgang Painted Series guitars. You think it'd come with a hard shell guitar case if he could do a solo for Michael Jackson for free. This album was very important. I went to the concert, which was held in a stadium. First time I'd ever even seen a stadium concert with a person, not 50 people. And it was packed, and it was awesome. But the production on this album is absolutely fantastic. Listen to the album. Forget the lyrics, the singing, forget the melody. Listen to everything going on underneath the melody. It is unbelievable. Every instrument is in the right place, playing the exact right note at the exact right time. Fantastic. Easily a top 5 album. Top 5, 12, I disagree. The Beatles' Revolver, 11. You know what? I kind of got to give them that one. Revolver was a good album. 11, I'm pretty down with that. Number 10, Lauryn Hill, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Absolutely not. This is not a top 10 album. I'm sorry. This is an album I could get away from. And granted, I have a very eclectic set of friends, and we all listen to all types of music. But, back in the day when 5150 released, everybody was talking about 5150. Everybody was playing 5150. When Moving Pictures released, everybody was talking about Moving Pictures. Everybody was playing Moving Pictures. When this released, I know a few people checking it out. I know a few. I didn't know a plethora of people checking this out. This is not a top 10 album. This is a fail. Number 9, Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks. This is not a top 10 album either. It is Bob Dylan. I just do not think that this is a top 10 album. I don't know what their criteria was. This one kind of shocks me a little bit. I would not expect to see that in the top 10. Prince and the Revolution, Purple Rain, number 8. This, to me, is a top 10 album. I do not disagree with the placement on this. Again, this album you could not get away from. It was everywhere, and it actually spawned a pretty damn successful movie, Purple Rain. Hits off this thing were just all over the place. Purple Rain, one of the greatest songs ever written and composed. That is a fantastic song. The vocal acrobatics on When Doves Cry are just, oh my God, they're just amazing. The writing and the precision of this album is fantastic. Definitely top 10. I'm going to give him the number 8 spot on this. I agree with that, so they actually got something right. Number 7, Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, a brilliant, brilliant album. Top 10, no. Top 20, yes. There again, you can't get away from this album. Oh, I don't know, man. This one probably could be a top 10 album. This was a huge album. It was huge. And like I said, you can't get away from it. And God, I know people still listening to the CD today on Rumors. I got to give them number 7. I got to do it. I got to do it. At number 6, we have Nirvana, Nevermind. I so disagree with this. This isn't a top 50 album. This isn't a top 100 album. I think it was a good time for this album to release, and that's what gave it the popularity. Had it released a year later, I think this album would have went in the garbage. The thing that bothers me about this is, I remember when Kurt Cobain killed himself, I was watching Kurt Loder on TV, and Kurt Loder said, that music was going to be split into pre-Nirvana and post-Nirvana. Give me a break. Are you serious? So I guess music is pre-Elvis, post-Elvis? Because they didn't sell as many albums as Elvis did. Really? Is this how we're going to break it down? Because they did one album that just happened to be at the exact right times. Like I said, a year later, this album would not have been as big. And I love grunge. But what pisses me off about it is Well, Nirvana killed hair music. Nirvana ushered in grunge. Wrong. Absolutely not. The band that killed it all and ushered it all in was Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam with 10. 10 was a monstrous album. 10 changed the world. This album was fantastic. It was by far their best effort, and they will never be able to complete another effort like this, as most bands can't even complete an effort as good as 10. 10 dropped in at 160. One of the greatest albums ever written, and it drops in at 160. Meanwhile, while 10, which is, let's face it, 10, Nevermind, or let's do this the other way. 10, Nevermind, 10, Nevermind. Give me a break, man. 10 is 100 times the album Nevermind could ever want to be. And I was talking to this guy, he's a producer. And he's a big time producer. He's not like your local. I mean, he's knowing through some friends of mine, and we were sitting chit chatting about music. And somehow, and this was several years ago, somehow we got on. Got on the STP and Pearl Jam, which, by the way, STP didn't even make top 500 albums. Really, they should at least, it would have been high 400s probably, but it's still Stone Temple Pilots, man. They put out some great, great, great music. But we got to talking about it, and I think we were talking about the song Black, actually, by Pearl Jam. And, he just popped up. He said, man, 10 changed the world. He said, it changed the world. And this guy's a big-time producer. He's worked with some huge talent. I mean, huge talent. And so I kind of have to take what he says a little bit. And, that was a big statement for him to say that. And I agree with him. For Nirvana, Nevermind to be at 6. And for that not to be 10, I'm absolutely shocked. Nirvana, Nevermind, that's not even top 100 for me. Number 5, dropping in, the Beatles, Abbey Road. I got to give them that one. It's the Beatles, it's Abbey Road. I just don't have to say anything else about that. It's the Beatles. You love them or hate them, you got to agree with that. At number 4, Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life. No, absolutely not. That is not the number 4. That is not the 4th best album in the world. This is not close to the 4th best album in the world. Coming in at 3, Joni Mitchell, Blue. Are you kidding me? This is not the 3rd best album in the world. I understand the significance of Joni Mitchell. I understand what she does, but there's better music out there. And at the end of the day, we have to relate this by the music. We don't relate it by somebody, just because, like I said, Run DMC. I agree with where they're at. I'm not a rap guy. And actually, like I said, that should have been a top 100, if not a top 50, because that was an important, significant album, and it had some great music on there. It's not my bag, but it had great music on there. Moving from number 3, number 2, the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. I just don't get it. I don't even know what to say to this. I absolutely don't know what to say to this. The Beach Boys were an important band. Brian Wilson. The guy was a phenom, man. The guy could write music. These cats could sing. They were important in their time. Is this the number 2 album of all time? Absolutely not. Not even close to the number 2 album of all time. And coming in at number 1, the biggest disappointment of the entire thing. I do love Marvin Gaye. I think Marvin Gaye is a substantial artist. I think he's a talented artist. But Marvin Gaye's What's Going On is not the number 1 album in the world. It is not even close to the number 1 album in the world. So what are they telling me? That he's the most talented? He's not. Is this the most important album? It's not. Did this album do anything that just changed my life? It didn't. Did this album do anything to change the world around it? Absolutely not. So what quantifies this to be the number 1 album in the world? I simply cannot wrap my brain around this. So before I wrap this up, now here's my absolute big complaint, and this is why I think Rolling Stone is full of shite. 2 of the greatest albums ever written were written by Ozzy Osbourne and Mr. Randy Rhoads. Those are important albums. Ozzy was in Black Sabbath, they're the forefathers of metal. Let's just lay it down on the line. They kicked down Ozzy Osbourne. In the music world, that's a big deal. In your world, not so much. In the music world, it was a big deal. Ozzy was done. He was finished. He was kaput. And in walks in this little skinny, scrawny 22-year-old guitar player wielding a Les Paul, who becomes one of the most prolific and celebrated guitar players in the world. 2 albums. Randy Rhoads' body of work is this big compared to Eddie Van Halen and Slash and Zakk Wylde. Till this day, you can't get away from Randy Rhoads. I still hear his music on the radio. Lord, my band, we do Crazy Train. We do Flying High Again. There's not a time that I go on YouTube that I don't see somebody doing something by Randy Rhoads. The guy was an absolute guitar phenom. They still dedicate shows to Randy Rhoads today. They still have tributes to Randy Rhoads today. Ozzy would not be Ozzy without Randy Rhoads. If there was no Randy Rhoads, Ozzy would have done something, but not to the magnitude that he's doing it now. Because of those first 2 incredibly important albums, which spawned some absolutely brilliant music and brilliant guitar work, because of those 2 albums, that sent Ozzy over the top. Ozzy's solo was much bigger than Black Sabbath could ever dream of getting. That spawned Ozfest. That spawned a dynasty, all because he met one young 22-year-old Randy Rhoads. That was the catalyst. How Blizzard of Oz or Diary of a Madman, which in my opinion is a top 5 if not a top 3, how one of those albums did not make the top 500 is a sin. That is ridiculous. Because if we're judging it off of sellability, they went platinum. If we're judging it off of talent, it's Randy Rhoads. Are you kidding me? I mean, that guy had all the talent that was needed in a band. Are we judging it off composition? Some of the most fantastic guitar compositions ever written are on those 2 albums. Just listen to Revelation's Mother Earth. Listen to the guitar work on it. This is not an Ozzy Osbourne video that I'm jumping on here. I'm just absolutely perturbed that these guys did not have enough sense or enough brains to count in one of the 2 greatest rock albums ever written by a young axe slinger, Randy Rhoads, who died way too early with a nominal body of work, but influenced an entire generation of guitar players and changed the musical world. To me, that is a top 5, if not a top 3. Okay, so now we've gone over my complete disgust of Rolling Stone's absolute failure on their top 500 albums. Obviously, they weren't doing it on talent. Obviously, they were not doing it on composition. I don't know what they were doing it on. In my opinion, Rolling Stone has become a political rag. Like I said, they are to music what MTV is to music video nowadays. This is an absolute joke, in my opinion. Agree or disagree, by all means, let me know what you think. If you have any comments, drop it down in the comments section. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments section. This is a bit of a variation off of what I do. And like I said, I'm coming out with my whole great album series, albums that I think are great. And I'm going to explain to you why I think they're great. You may agree, may disagree. We'll see what happens. But I disagree with, I'm going to say 450 of what they got in here. I disagree with 450 of them. So again, if you have any comments, put in the comment section. If you have any questions, put in the comment section. Please subscribe, and until then, pick up your axe, grab that guitar, and rock hard. Really? You're going to give me a growl on my way out, bro?